Hello and welcome back to another video, and in today's video I'm going to show you how you can make this Jenga tower in Blender using geometry nodes. So let's just get started. So I'm going to delete the default cube and add in a new cube. Then I'm going to go over to the geometry nodes editor and add in a new geometry nodes setup. Call this Jenga tower. And in this cube we need to model one of the bricks. So for me I chose to just move this up and then scale this down by 0.2. And then scale on the X or Y by 1 divided by 3. And this will be fine for me. So just apply the transforms, give this a little bit of a bevel, something like that. And that should be fine. You can add to this later, but I'm just going to get on with the geometry nodes for the sake of this video. But just know you can change this later. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here. And the first thing I want to do is add in a mesh line. And if we preview this, you will see it's just a line going up with some vertices that we have here in the count. And this is how high our tower is going to be. So I want to transform this to points, so mesh to points. And now we have points on which we can instance our cubes. But of course we need an array of our cubes. So I'm going to add in a mesh grid as well. And just set the vertices on the x-axis to 3 and then on the y to 1, just so we have another line, but a horizontal line in this case. And for the size on the x, I want to add a third to this, just so the center of our vertices are in the center of where the block should be. So just 1 meter plus 1 divided by 3, like that. That will be fine. And then duplicate this mesh to points here as well. So we can instance our blocks on these points and then instance these points on these points. And then we can rotate them however we want. All right, so let's just instance that. So I want to add in 2 instance on points nodes and connect the mesh to points to both of these instances. And these will be for like the alternating rows. And then connect these mesh to points to the points. And if we preview this, you will see we have this grid right here, and then this grid is identical, but we want to rotate one of these on the z-axis, just so they look like this. So one row is facing like this, and the other row is facing like that, and we want to alternate how our cube is going to be scattered on here. So to delete the row we don't want on one of these, we are going to add in an index node, which will get the index of the vertex that we're looking at, or the point rather. So the bottom one will always be 0, and then it's moving up. And what we can do is add in a math operation, set this to ping pong, which is one of my favorite operations. And if we just preview this and set it to 1, this should just alternate. So 0, 1, 0. And that is great. We are previewing with the wrong geometry. If we look at it like that, you will see it's alternating like we want it to. And that's what's going to happen, of course. So we're going to drag this over to the selection on the first one, and this will get rid of half of the points. And we are going to add in a map range node between the other instance on points, and then just invert this. So set the 2 min to 1 and the 2 max to 0, and then connect up the values to the selection. And like this, you can see it's alternating now. And now we can instance our block on these. So just get our geometry input and use that as the instance on here and connect up the points. And now we can see our blocks are nice like this, and right here as well. But we need to rotate it for this one. So add in a transform geometry node and rotate it on the z-axis by 90. So now we have this, and you can see they're offset a little bit. So we can fix that back in the mesh line right here. So changing the z will change the distance, but we know how big our cube is, which is 0.4. So we're going to set the offset to 0.4. And right now this should be able to stack nicely. So to test that, we can just add in a join geometry node and connect them up. And as you can see, we have a nice perfect Jenga tower. And if we increase the count right here, it should stack very nicely. All right, so that will be it for the normal Jenga tower. And now we are going to add some different things to this to spice it up. So I want to offset all of my blocks a little bit, add in some noise, and I also want to delete some of our blocks. So let's just do that. So the first thing I want to do is the rotation. So I want to rotate on the Z a little bit right here, alternating rows. So I'm just going to add in a noise texture and then a map range node. Just connect this up. Set the values to whatever you want. I found -2 from the 2 min to work pretty well, just so it goes in the negative direction as well. What I did was I added in a math node set to multiply, so I can change the intensity of this. I just connected up this value to like the group input here, which I'll show you at the end. For now, just deleting it. And we can just connect this up to the rotation. So add in a combine XYZ and get the result to the Z. And then the vector we want to plug into this rotation right here. And I see we do need the math nodes a little bit, just to multiply this until it looks something like this, just a little bit offset. And then we can increase like the scale and the detail and the roughness to whatever we want. And that will kind of randomize it in between our blocks, as you can tell. Set this to like 0.1. So that added in a little bit. But I also want some more randomization. So I'm going to offset this mesh line as well, just so they aren't rotated, but they're also offset. So they're not in the center. I want to add in a set position node in between this mesh line and the mesh 2 points. And then I want to duplicate this noise texture and set the detail to 2, roughness to 0.5, and the scale to something small, I guess, or whatever you want. Whatever you find looks good. I don't really care about all of these values for the noise texture. It's whatever you find the most interesting, I guess. All right, with a map range node, I want to unlock the minus range. So I'm going to set the 2 min to -1. So we're mapping 0 to 1 to -1 to 1, just so it moves in the negative direction as well. And then I can add in another multiply node just to get the intensity of this. I connected this up with the group input again and did some other math, but you don't really have to do that. Just this multiply will be enough for the intensity. And then another combine XYZ, connect this up to the X and the Y, and then get the factor to the offset. And if we increase the multiply, we should be able to see something, but I am doing something wrong, I guess. Probably the scaling on this is off. Yeah, so the scaling was off, so I need to set the multiply to something like 0.2, I guess. And then the scaling to something pretty high, just so we have some randomness. So that is it. I set it to 50. All right, so if we just preview the end result again, as you can see, the tower is a little bit more wonky, which I like. And now we can just get over to deleting some of our blocks. So to do that, we need to add in a delete geometry node in between these instance on points. And we also need to realize our instances, otherwise it will just delete the entire row because it's instanced. So deleting geometry will just delete every single instance. So these instances need to be real and their own points, if that makes any sense to you. And then with another noise texture, I am just going to get a math node set to greater than, and we can set this value to whatever we want. 0.5 for now. We'll change that later. But yeah, just drag that value into the selection of the delete geometry nodes. Okay, that was my bad. This one does not need rotation. So just delete that rotation and it works. That's great. So now we can delete some cubes. And of course you want to find a nice balance of where it looks possible that it's balancing. And you can maybe play with the seed a little bit. But yeah, generally I found 0.6 or like 0.55. 0.55, that was like the bare minimum that it looks realistic. As you can see, sometimes it doesn't, but if you get a good seed, Like this looks possible, right? Oh, that one, okay. Yeah, this one. This one looks possible. So yeah, you have to play around with that, but something like 0.6 normally works pretty well. Or you just don't care about that, which in that case, great, you know. But yeah, that is pretty much the node setup. You can just connect some things up to the group input, but I'm not going to be showcasing that today because that is a waste of time. You can do that yourself. But I do want to show you the full project I have here. So here I have the geometry nodes, everything linked up. And this is what it looks like. It's pretty much what I just showed you. But then with the seed that you can change really nicely, the scaling of the noise, the amount, which builds up really nicely with the noise. Then the randomized transforms, make it a little bit more or a little bit less. Remove random, which I did with a map range node on the greater than node. So yeah, you can play around with all of that. You can add in the material, misalignment, whatever you want. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.